Hey guys, how you doing? Luna here with a new video for the channel. I hope you're doing well and welcome to a new episode of the Ranked series. This is basically a video where I take your favorite artist and rank their discography from worst to best. Today's episode is about Taylor Swift because as you all know, and if you don't know, I don't really know what the fuck you're doing with your time. Taylor Swift just released Midnight last week and the hype has been amazing. The Rolling Stone on their Instagram have been dick riding Taylor Swift like crazy. I personally, I wasn't really a big fan of the album. If you want to see my review, it's on the channel, and subscribe while you're at it. So I thought it would be an interesting idea to take the task and rank Taylor's albums and see where Midnight is placed inside their discography. Please guys, remember that this is only my personal opinion, so if you have your own, do feel free to leave it down below in the comments. I would like to see your list of Taylor's albums. Obviously we're talking about 10 fucking albums here, so I'm pretty sure everyone's gonna have a different list. Leave it down below so everyone can see it. And with that being said, as I said before, we have 10 albums to go through, so we better start right away. Yeah, I pretty much feel like Taylor's debut is, her worst album. The main reason for that, it's pretty much because this album has, such a big lack of identity. There's nothing about this album other than the vocals that yell Taylor Swift at me. And obviously, it's not her fault. I'm not here trying to say that Taylor's songwriting in this album is bad. That's not what I'm trying to say. She was 17, 16 when she released this album and when she wrote this song, so it's pretty much obvious that this album wasn't gonna have anything, that would define her sound, let's say. But that doesn't excuse the album from being incredibly generic, being kind of boring, repetitive, and just too melodramatic. Taylor's songwriting is often melodramatic on its own, but in this album even more, with tracks like Teardrops in My Guitar, Tim McGraw, Picture to Burn, featuring that line, in the original version of Telling Your Friends Say You're Gay. And that kind of sums up, the entirety of the songwriting in this album, just a teenager writing things that teenagers write. That's pretty much it. And the melodies, even though they're beautiful, after a while, like after 2 or 4 tracks, you're already tired of the same thing over and over again. This is hardly a Taylor Swift album. The only thing that is Taylor Swift is the voice, and you can hardly fuck that up. At number 9, we have Reputation, and this album's not good. In this album, for some reason, Taylor, after making such a wonderful fucking album as 1989 is, not only the album itself, the songs, but the whole movement behind the album, making Taylor such a big pop star, the biggest one in the fucking world. Why would you change your sound the way she did in this album? I don't fucking know. Synth pop music is so, it can be used in so many different ways. I don't really know what she would go for. She would change that for this R&B trap tunes that are found in this album. The opening track, Ready For It, pretty much just kills you with that loud ass bass line, distorted as hell. And then Taylor that seems to be rapping, or maybe you can explain me what the fuck is she doing on that track, because I don't have a clue. And then in the hook of the song, this whole dark and hard-hitting aura changes to the typical thing she was doing in 1989. So clearly Taylor wasn't committing, to this sound. Again, I think that I appreciate that she tried to go for a different sound, more darker and hard-hitting, but you have to commit and you have to do it better than this. Especially the next track that comes in after Ready For It, it's Endgame, which is a track that features Ed Sheeran and Future, and Ed Sheeran is rapping faster and with more flow than Future. I'm not saying that I enjoyed Ed Sheeran's verse, it's fucking horrible, but at least it's better than what Future was doing on this track. And don't even get me started on Taylor, because the hook of the song and the bridge of the song is such an annoying one that I cannot bring myself to enjoy such an album. I think this album is bad. At least, the reason why I put it above the debut is because I think this album has more personality. Obviously it's a pretentious one, but at least it's more Taylor Swift, especially in tracks like Look What You Made Me Do, where Taylor says for the 1,000th time how important karma is. And you do have some decent cuts in this album. For example, I like the R&B dance whole thing that she was doing on Delicate. Plus, the vocal processing that she's using in that song is also quite enjoyable, as well as the track Gorgeous. But basically, the experience I get, or the reflection I get from this album is when Taylor tries to go for a sound that resembles more to what she did in 1989, I enjoy it, and when she goes for this weird ass trap thing that she was trying to do, I fucking hate it. So yeah, that's pretty much this album. I'm sweating like a fucking pig right now, guys. I need help. At number 8, we're putting Speak Now. I know a lot of people fucking love this album. I know a lot of people say that this was a huge point in terms of Taylor's evolution, but I just don't fucking see it. To be honest, I do see the importance of this album in terms of, tracks like Mine, hinting towards Red. But I just don't feel like this album capitalizes on that sound just yet. Like that's Red. Red capitalized on that sound. We don't really need it Speak Now because already in Fearless, the album previous to this one, we had the same sound. For anyone suggesting that this album is as important as Fearless was, an album that literally had hits like Love Story and You Belong With Me, hits that brought Taylor to the mainstream and to be a fucking world-known star, you have to be slightly delusional. Usually I'm really careful saying my opinions in terms of music. I always say it's just my opinion, but this one is not an opinion, this is just a fact. I actually believe that the track Mine, a track that everyone seems to praise so much, is annoying as hell, as well as the track Mean. I think that track is so pathetic. It's almost like the type of anti-bully thing that Sesame Street would come up with if it was still on today. Plus, the track Back to December seems to be, rather than heartbreaking and relatable one, it seems to be an anthem to manipulation. So I don't know, I just don't feel this album. I don't feel like this album communicates, or I don't feel related to this. It also has that wonderful, and I do mean it, wonderful diss track to John Mayer. This is one of the highlights on this album. Dear John, it's a really good song. But apart from that, yeah, you can skip this one. Then you have Fearless, and the reason why I'm putting Fearless, right after Speak Now is because I think that in terms of overall enjoyability, you can kind of, these albums are at the same level. I don't really think that Fearless is that much better. Actually, it's only ever so slightly better than Speak Now, and the only reason why I'm placing this album above Speak Now, it's because I think this album was way more important in terms of, Taylor's evolution as an artist. In this album, you have the first massive hit that Taylor ever released. Even though Teardrops in My Guitar was kind of a big hit, from her debut, it's nothing compared to Love Story and You Belong With Me. You have some of Taylor's most poetic and beautiful and relatable songs in the track The Best Day, which is a track dedicated to her parents and even her brother. The main problem and the reason why this album is so low, even though I think it's such an important album, is because apart from the tunes I just told you, there isn't that much more than you can explore in this album. It kind of commits the same sins as every other Taylor album from the 2000s, which is being incredibly boring and repetitive, because at a certain point we're talking about an album that has, I believe, 14 tracks. I don't really remember, but it has more tracks that it needs to have. I don't know what she was doing this at the time. I don't really understand it, but pretty much I just don't feel like this album is interesting enough to kind of land higher on the list. Okay, actually I don't really have anything else to say. This is the first time that Taylor showed more pop rock approaches and more pop influences into her sound in the tracks I've mentioned before, You Belong With Me and Love Story. I do think that the lyricism in this album is slightly better as well than in Speak Now, although you do have some stingers too, and some melodramatic tunes that are just too much emotion for me. I don't want that much teenage love heartbreak thing going around, so no thank you. But apart from that, I think that this album, it's an album that you definitely have to listen if you want to know, Taylor's story as a musician. At number 6, I'm putting Lover, and I do know that many of you out there, many Taylor Swift fans love Lover, but the reason why I cannot bring myself to like this album as much as you guys is because there's a lot of tracks here that ruin the experience for me. If you took half of the album away, off the album, let's say, you could have a really cohesive and enjoyable listen. I think that this album has some really snappy tunes, for example, Paper Rings, catchy as fuck, as well as some sophisticated ballads, for example, the title track, Lover, one of the highlights on this album, definitely. But it almost seems like for every good song that Taylor comes up with in this album, you have a really annoying, pretentious, and bad one. For example, the track The Man, where I do kind of like the melody to this track, but the lyrical concept is just fucking stupid. I mean, I do understand that I'm pretty sure that Taylor has to put up with a lot of misogynist people in the industry. I'm not saying that she doesn't. It's actually quite obvious that she would face something like that, and it's you know, it's a shame. I'm not saying that it's okay, but you could also argue that the only reason, or one of the main reasons, not the only one of the main reasons why she became so popular is because she had the looks, the type of looks that a label or, you know, someone that wants to sell albums want from their artist. You know, she was beautiful, blue-eyed, blonde, everything that a record producer needs to kind of sell the album without people even listening to the music. And I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but it's just my opinion, you know, that Taylor's looks, the fact that she's so beautiful, has been more helpful rather than a problem. You know, I don't really think that this track kind of appreciates that. Sort of like, if I was a man, I will be way higher at the top, you know, talking from literally the highest point that a pop artist can reach. Also, you have the track Me, which is probably the worst track in terms of lyrics that Taylor has ever come up with, and the melody isn't all that great. You know, the melody isn't all that great either. You also have the tune You Need to Calm Down, which is basically Taylor Swift dick riding the LGBTQ people. It's definitely an album that, if you like this cocky, colorful, upbeat tunes that Taylor came up with, you know, at this stage of her career, you're going to enjoy this album. But if you want to listen to this Taylor, you're way better off listening to 1989 or Red rather than this album, you know. So I couldn't say that this is a bad album. I don't think it is, but I couldn't say that it's good either. So yeah, that's where I'm at when it comes to this album. Hi, basically what happened is, you know, power went off in my building, and I've been without electricity for like 48 hours literally. I started recording this video on Wednesday, now it's Friday. Power just arrived, and basically I'm just going to continue the video from now on, and that's why you see me with different clothing, and that is the reason why you won't have as many videos this week on the channel. So sorry for that, and remember, fuck socialism, okay? Do not be tricked by it, okay? Fuck it. Okay, so number 5, Midnights. The reason why I kind of enjoy this album a little bit more than Lover is because I feel like Lover has some moments that are really bad. While, you know, the main sin, or the biggest sin that Midnights commits, is basically being forgettable as fuck. You know, you don't really have a bad track here, or maybe, you know, Midnight Rain and Vigilante shit are really bad tracks. But what I mean is, you don't have offensive tracks. Instead, tracks like Me, tracks like You Need to Calm Down, and that type of shit in the album Lover, it's offensive. It's so bad that it's offensive. Here it's just bad. And you also do have some really good tunes like Karma, even though the lyrical concept can be a little bit goofy and fucking stupid. The song has a nice melody. Also, Bejeweled is quite a fun track. You have beautiful songs here like Sweet Nothing and Labyrinth. Really beautiful song, one of my favorites from the album. And sometimes, you know, this album kind of captures that same energy that Taylor had around 1989, and that's pretty much the only reason why I'm kind of, you know, giving this album a pass. I don't think it's a good album, but I don't think it's bad either. There are moments here that I enjoy, as the ones I've said before. I think that the synths in this album are used in a horrible way. Most of the, you know, redeeming qualities about the album are based around Taylor's performance and melodies and lyrics, rather than, you know, the instrumentation, and that is sort of like puts the album in a weird spot for me, because even though I can listen to this album and don't really have a problem with it, I find it really underwhelming, you know, a really underwhelming listen. So that's the reason why it's at this spot. At number 4, we have Red, and the reason why Red is only at number 4, you know, it's so low on the list, considering that this, by many, is the greatest Taylor Swift album. And let me tell you something, this album is overrated as fuck. Like, a certain magazine, I'm not gonna say the name, put this album in the top 100 albums of all time. That can sort of tell you, the general opinion that people have on this album. This album is huge. It's definitely the most important album in Taylor's catalog, because this is the time where Taylor jumped from, local superstar to massive worldwide relatable superstar that everyone loved, with songs like "We're Never Ever 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 Getting Back Together," songs like "I Knew You Were Trouble," songs like "Red," songs like "State of Grace," my personal favorite from the album, made Taylor, really present on the charts. And I believe this whole album charted. But why am I putting it so low then? It's because this album can have some pretty stupid moments that I think the rest of the albums on this list don't really have. For example, the track "Stay, Stay, Stay," which features one of the worst, if not the worst, songwriting that Taylor has ever delivered on a song. This is basically a song where Taylor kind of tells a story of an argument she had with her boyfriend, and how she threw the phone at him, and then the next time they had an argument, her boyfriend came with a football helmet on. That's the level of stupidity that Taylor portrays in this album. But overall, I feel like this album uses a pop rock formula that after a while it can get a little bit outdated, especially after you've heard synth pop Taylor. This sound can be a little bit like too old, especially if you listen to as much music as I do. So to me, I choose, even though I like this album and I think it's a really good album, I wouldn't put it higher, nor I would place it anywhere near the top 3 in terms of Taylor's best albums. So yeah, that's pretty much the reason why it falls here. For many, this is Taylor's best album. Again, a 1989 is an album that was really, really massive when it came out. I remember that everyone was listening to "Shake It Off" and "Blank Space." This synth pop instrumentation that the whole album has is really good, really colorful, fun, entertaining, catchy. This album has everything that a pop album needs to have. You have one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs in this album with "Shake It Off." I love that song. I think it's entertaining as fuck. I do know the song is quite hated. I know that a lot of people have an opinion on this song, but listen, this is catchy as hell, and you cannot deny it. This is a massive fuck you to the haters, and I just like the concept. I think it's fun. I think it's enjoyable. What are you gonna do? In terms of importance, this album also has a big part in Taylor's popularity, because even though by "Red" she was already like in the top of the game, and everyone was talking about her, with this album she solidified herself as pop queen. I do think that this is a massive improvement from "Red," and this is the point in the list where things are starting to get really good. Even though I kind of agree with anyone who says that this is her best album, it feels like her best album, or the greatest point in her career artistically, I don't think that this album has the same level of significance for me personally. So that's the reason why it only falls in number 3. But it's a really good album. You should definitely give this one a try. I know that many people have heard the songs from this album, like "Style," "Bad Blood," "Out of the Woods," "Blank Space," "Shake It Off," but not many people have heard the album itself. So go ahead and give it a try. You know what? For the first and second spot on this list, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm putting Folklore and Evermore both at number 1, basically because this album are basically the same thing, and they both kind of, with different songs obviously, touch the same points of my brain and kind of make me feel the same way. So you choosing one over the other would be fucking stupid. So rather than that, I'm just putting a number 2 and number 1, Folklore and Evermore, in no particular order because I couldn't find one. Okay, so basically this albums, and the reason why I think they're so superior from the previous album that Taylor has released and the most recent album, Midnights, is because in every other album that Taylor has released, I believe that every time that she touched anything, any important subjects, say love, heartbreak, hate, social pressure on herself as an artist, I think she touched it from the point of view of a 17-year-old girl. You know, it seems like Taylor never grew up ever since she released her debut album. I think that when you're going to portray feelings, you really have to go naked, expressing your opinions and trying your best to communicate whatever it is that you're feeling. And even though Taylor is really good at that, I think that the message, I couldn't find them relatable because she was talking from the point of view of a teenage girl, not an actual adult. Instead, in these two albums, I definitely do connect with most of the things that Taylor is saying, not only because of her lyrics being spoken from a point of view of wisdom and obviously a more mature person, but also because of the instrumentation being way more in line with the concept. Almost every single instrumental is hauntingly beautiful, really low key, really quiet, breathy, and I personally love it. I think that if you were to make an album about heartbreak, love, and melancholic feelings, say, this is the type of instrumentation you'd want to go for, because it allows the listener to connect more, or at least it allowed me to connect more with Taylor's words. Obviously, her performances here are beautiful. The vocal processing in tracks like Mirable are amazing. The track Evermore has to be one of the most beautiful ballads that Taylor has ever released. The use of piano in this album is also really accurate. For example, in the track Cardigan, which is actually one of my favorite albums from these two projects. I really like the lyrical concept of how a person drags you out of a situation when you're not really yourself anymore, you're depressed or whatever, and then that same person that saved you, say, kind of puts you back in the same hole. I don't think that these are the best albums in the fucking world. I'm not going to be as delusional as to say that, definitely that's not the case. I personally believe that these albums can be a little bit too long for what they offer. We're talking about albums that have 17, 15 tracks. That's a bit too much for the type of concept this album offers, but you know what? I still think they're beautiful. They're definitely one of the best albums of 2020. They're albums that deserve all the praise in the world as I'm giving them now. I do believe that these albums are way better than anything that Taylor has put up until now, and they're definitely albums that I have on repeat every time I want to listen to Taylor Swift. I 100% rather listen to this Taylor, indie Taylor, rather than the pop queen Taylor that everyone fucking loves. With the release of Midnight, I really don't know if this was only Taylor cosplaying as indie. I don't really know if this was the real her, but I definitely do feel like I connected with this Taylor way more than I connected with the other Taylor. So I definitely do hope that I can see her again doing this type of sound, not exactly in this indie bedroom pop, chamber pop, folk kind of thing. No, I want her to show the more intimacy in her songs, because this concepts about karma and fucking vigilante shit where she's portraying herself as a bad girl, I don't connect with that. I'm sorry, but I just don't think she's being genuine. Instead, here I think that I'm listening to the real Taylor speaking true words, the things that come from the heart, and I want to see that again somewhere in the future. So I really hope that you enjoyed, because that's pretty much the end of the video, guys. What do you think? Did you like my list? Did you not? Leave it down below in the comments. I would like to know what you think about my rating. If you have your own list, then again, leave it down below in the comments. I'll be more than glad to check it out. If you did enjoy the video, then go ahead and leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the videos that I upload. And you can see maybe this week I wasn't able to upload as many videos as I wanted, but you know what, I'm trying my best, guys. It's not in my power when the government cuts my power supply. So yeah, I had a fun time listening to Taylor Swift's discography all over again. It's definitely a lot. We were talking about 10 albums, each and every single one of them like 1 hour long. So that means that I've been spending like the last 24 hours of my life listening to Taylor Swift, which is more than I would ever ask for. But you know what? I had a nice time. I definitely do enjoy most of her albums. So yeah, with that being said, once again, I hope that you enjoyed, and I really hope that I can see you guys soon with a new video. But until then, bye.